Let's see here. What game are we gonna play today? We got lots of games today. PS2, Xbox. Maybe I should sit my ass down and actually play some Grab by the Ghoulies. Oh, would you look at that? It already came out for me. Perfect. Grab by the Ghoulies was among some of the first video games I played in my life. I had lots of fun with it and always regarded it as one of my favorite games, but I never beat it. I went into detail a bit on my video games I never beat as a kid, but now I decided to actually sit my ass down and play it through, and determine if it was actually this legendary game I made it up to be in my mind as a kid. Before I go into the gameplay, let's talk a bit about the development and the release of the game. Grab by the Ghoulies is an action-adventure game developed by Rare and is about fighting ghouls in a mansion to save your girlfriend. It began development by Rare in 2000, right after the release of Banjo-Tooie. Rare was on quite the hot streak with this game, and the other previous ones too, so fans had great expectations. The name was given to it because a British slang for balls is ghoulies. You get it? Grab by the Ghoulies? Now, the game began development for the GameCube, but then Microsoft bought out Rare in 2002, and they gave Rare a deadline to get it converted to the Xbox to release in 2003. The GameCube version was set to be a bigger, non-linear, open-platform game, but due to this change in time, it was developed to be a smaller, linear game. The game was released on the Xbox on October 21st, 2003. That's when my mom bought my 4-year-old ass the game. The reception of the game was mixed, but I'll go into more detail about the reviews at the end of this video. The game was then ported to the Xbox 360 in 2009, and then in 2015 added to the Rare Replay collection on the Xbox One. So, let's take a look at the gameplay now. So we're actually going to finally play the game, pop it in the old Xbox right now. The game is genred as a 3D action-adventure and also has some beat-em-up mechanics. This was a big switch up from the previous Rare games. The game has you fight enemies called Ghoulies and complete challenges room to room to progress your way through the game. The combat is controlled by moving the right stick. Cooper will swing or kick in the direction you flick towards, or does a combo by holding the stick. You can pick up many objects like furniture, swords, and many more to combat foes. Each weapon has a durability or cooldown meter, so you only have a few hits. There is a power-up that will make weapons durability infinite for a short span of time. There's other power-ups too, which are called Super Soups, including Energy Boost, Turbo Cooper, Invisibility, downgrades that make things harder, and many more. The combat gets repetitive, and one of the things that keeps the gameplay interesting is the challenges and the enemies. I will go into more detail on the enemies later when I talk about the story, but about the challenges. Challenges will appear to block you from getting into the next room until you complete them. They get very interesting and challenging. Sometimes it may just be defeat a certain amount of enemies, or sometimes it may want you to defeat them only using your fists. If you fail any of the criterias of the challenge, death will appear and will one-hit you or any enemy that gets in his way, which can sometimes be used to your advantage to defeat enemies. When entering each room, your health is controlled by the main villain, which can add a bit of spice to these challenges too. There are also quick time events when Cooper is greeted by a jump scare, and some objects will scare Cooper to the point where damage is doubled and movement is slowed. So the gameplay may get repetitive at times, but let's start at the beginning of the game and progress to the end, and look at the story and levels along the way. Fucking TV's acting up again. The game opens up like a book. Literally, all the cutscenes are formatted to be like a comic book, with the dialogue coming up on screen like an old movie. It starts off with Cooper and his girlfriend Amber lost in a forest searching for cover due to the incoming rain. Amber suggests they take shelter in a mansion. In response, Cooper says no and says that mansions like this are full of creeps, which pisses off the owner Baron Von Ghoul, who's listening in on the conversation. He sends 2 of his gargoyle ghouls, who never appear in the game after this, to kidnap Amber to get back at Cooper. This leads Cooper to chase after her into the mansion to save her. In the main hall, Cooper is surrounded by ghouly eyes, and the butler of the mansion walks in to reveal he's surrounded by imps. The butler ends up just being super helpful despite working for the bad guy, and gives Cooper a tutorial on how to fight the imps. After defeating all the imps, the butler directs the way to Amber, and will give you more directions where to go throughout the game. Before going through the door he directs you to, there's a rare book sitting on the stairs. There's one on each level, and if you collect 5, you unlock a bonus stage. And if you complete all the bonus stages, you can play the game as Amber, who has less health and weaker attacks. But back to the main story. After leaving the main hall, you walk through a hallway in first person, full of mounted heads. Some of these heads are actually Banjo and Kazooie. If one of these heads will come to life and scare you, a QuickTime event happens in which you just mash buttons. If you fail, you lose health. The QuickTime events are pretty easy, but this stage with the first person is the only time this ever happens in the game. Sometimes the start of the level will give you a view of the room in first person, but I thought they would do more interesting things with levels with this kind of first person event. After you complete this room, you fight your way through more rooms of the mansion. Some new enemies are introduced: skeletons, spiders, haunted televisions, chairs, and mummies. All these enemies are pretty basic to fight against. The only gimmicks are fighting against the haunted television, in which you just can't hit it when it starts spewing electricity, and the mummies, you just gotta light them on fire. After playing a game of cat and mouse chasing after Amber, you end up finding her, and just after you free her, Dr. Crackpipe rolls in and shoots her, turning into a hideous monster. The butler then suggests on going to the cook of the mansion to create a potion to turn her back to normal. If you stay in this room, the gross Amber will just try and kiss you and you just gotta run away from her. But not gonna lie, I'd still smash. Before heading to the kitchen, a new enemy appears, which is the haunted door, which isn't complicated to beat either, but you can hit some nasty combos. Now, going into chapter 2. When you arrive in the kitchen, you're greeted by some fire imps, in which the cook, completely friendly too, gives you a fire extinguisher in order to defeat them. After, the cook, Ma Soupswell, tells Cooper she needs 3 ingredients to cook a potion to turn Amber back to normal. Oh great, a fetch quest. First are the glowworms, which are located in the lighthouse. On the way to the lighthouse, you encounter zombies, which have a lot of health but are simple to beat. After encountering the zombies, you then enter the embassy ballroom, which is just fucking bumping. I specifically remember this level just due to the amazing song. You just beat the shit out of everyone in here and then head over to the conservatory where ninja imps are introduced, which are just imps that do ninja shit. Before heading to the lighthouse, you're greeted by the groundskeeper Fiddlesworth, who gives Cooper a squirt gun that does damage against zombies and the haunted TV. Cooper then fights his way up to the lighthouse. A new encounter is Medusa. Stepping in her view will trigger a QuickTime event. If you fail, you lose 10 health. Before getting the ingredient, it is introduced that some ghoulies are friendly and can help you in battle. They don't really help much though, only really taking aggro off you. Anyways, you grab the first ingredient and then go back to the kitchen. Before you get there, you encounter a Hunchback, which is an enemy that can only be damaged via the face, then fighting a room of zombie pirates, which are just zombies with a bit more health. When arriving at the kitchen, Cooper hands over the glowworms, and Ma Soupswell sends them to the chicken shed to acquire a giant egg. On the way there, flying imps are introduced. Pretty simple to fight, they're just imps that fly. In the chicken shed are vampire chickens that are protecting the egg. You're given Old Edna from the groundskeeper to fight off the chickens, but upon acquiring the egg, this fucking skeleton chef looking ass steals it and runs away. Then Cooper must chase him down to get it back. Along the way, chasing the skeleton down, cursed mummies appear, which rely on some curses and magic to fight, and also haunted coats, which are super easy to beat. But after chasing the skeleton down to the kitchen and beating the shit out of him, Ma stops Cooper, telling him that this is her assistant, Mr. Ribs, who was just trying to help. Fucking help my ass, he was. Now, for the final ingredient, dungweed, which is located in the walled garden. On the way there, Cooper runs into haunted paintings, no gimmick on beating them, just punch the shit out of them. After, Cooper runs into the maid of the mansion who gives him a gun that shoots soda can grenades. The maid's kind of a bitch though. The gun is used to fight off enemies in the garden. After beating them, you then acquire the dungweed. On the way back, you run into Jesse and Clyde, who's done too much jerking off. This one's like the Hunchback, it's kind of like a mini boss, you just beat the shit out of him, he has lots of health. He has really heavy hits too, so it makes it a little tough to beat. Once getting back to the kitchen though, Ma cooks up the last ingredient, making the potion to cure Amber. And once applying it to her, Ma realized she was given the wrong ingredient and Amber loses her shit, King Hippo vibe, and starts a boss fight against her. Fighting her is basic. dodge attacks, then attack back. But if Cooper gets stuck in one of her combos, he's pretty much dead. After defeat, Ma comes back with the real cure, and Amber's turned back to normal. Cooper and Amber, reunited, make their way out of the mansion, but are stopped at the front door by Mr. Ribs, who wants Cooper to save the rest of the boys and girls who've been kidnapped by Baron Von Ghoul, which are held in the mansion, which starts Chapter 3. Chapter 3 starts off with going to the butler's room, in which he tells Cooper the only way to save all the kidnapped boys and girls is to get the key from Baron Von Ghoul. His room is locked up, and the only way to open it is to recite a chant, which is written on 3 different pieces of paper scattered around the house. Oh great, another fetch quest. The first piece is in the greenhouse. On the way out, warlocks are introduced. They're just kind of a pain in the ass to fight. They shoot fireballs and teleport around the room. Moving closer to the greenhouse, vampires are introduced as well. They have massive tits. Which is irrelevant, but I just had to say it. Anyways, when they're in their coffin, no damage can be done, but every once in a while they'll open up and you can attack them. Anyways, Cooper retrieves the first piece in the greenhouse and heads his way to the second piece in the stables. On the way there, the last new enemy is introduced, which is the worm. They'll turn into bombs when damage is dealt upon them and try to sui bomb Cooper. Cooper then retrieves the second piece in the stables, and the last piece is located in Dr. Crackpot's lab. When arriving at his lab, there's a cutscene that seems like there's going to be a boss fight with him, but Cooper just sticks his finger in his gun and defeats him, then you just fight some enemies after. I thought the boss fight with him would be a fun idea, but it just seems kinda lazy not to include it. Probably because Rare had a deadline. Anyways, with all 3 pieces, you arrive at Baron's room, and open the door. It starts Chapter 4. In a cutscene, it's shown that the butler was Baron in disguise the entire time. Shit, that really doesn't make sense. He was just helping you the whole time? Did he want a challenge? Is this like when Goku gave Cell a senzu bean to give Gohan more of a challenge or what? Well, time for the boss fight. Baron has a few stages. First he'll hit you with his little wand thing, and knocking him down and stealing it is the only way to deal damage against him. After, he hops in an airplane and will fly around the room and gives Cooper a gun to fight against him. Again, he just helps you, creating more of a challenge to him. This man is a true Saiyan.
With everything at stake, you still can't help but be a slave to your better nature. Sickening.
The way to deal damage now is to dodge his attacks and then have him crash into a wall, then just shoot him. This boss fight took me a while and was kind of a pain in the ass due to weird camera angles and just random bullshit. But after beating him, Cooper gets the key to free all the kidnapped boys and girls. The whole boss fight is just an entire chapter, so now heading on to Chapter 5, the last one. Chapter 5 gives you a time limit in order to save all the kids around the house. Mr. Ribs leads you around the house to previous locations where the kids were locked up. It's pretty easy to free everyone before the time limit. If Cooper misses any, they just take points off the final score of the game. After getting all the ones in the house, there's one girl tied up outside who has some pretty big tits. I've also noticed a lot that there's just bouncing titties in this game. It's kinda strange for a kid's game. But after freeing tits, Cooper gets knocked out and you have to take control of Ma to fight a horde of imps. But after that, the game's done. All the characters from the mansion send off Amber and Cooper as they walk to a city that looks just as scary as the mansion they were in. I think they did that just in case of a sequel because Baron follows them there too. But there would probably never be a sequel to this. But anyways, that's the whole story start to finish. Let me tell you my final thoughts about this game. Just must be that cough acting up again. Grabbed by the Ghoulies will always be a game that holds a lot of nostalgic value, since I had lots of fun playing this game as a kid. Now, I had lots of fun playing this game now, but I did notice quite a few flaws in it. The whole game itself was rushed, and it shows at some points. With the whole game being very linear and repetitive, the only thing that spices up is the challenges and the enemies. But lots of the characters and enemies are underutilized. I think there could have been some more boss fights and less fetch quests. The story seems to make fun of itself, being self-aware, but overall seems like lazy writing. If you're coming from some of the games Rare made previously, this could be a big letdown. But it's better than some of the other shit they made after this. Maybe this was a cursed game that started the downfall of Rare. Oh, who am I kidding? There's no such thing as a cursed game. My final score for this game has got to be 6 out of 10. A lot of the initial reception shared many points on how I feel, but fans gave it now kind of a cult following, probably kids who grew up playing it like me. It's a very fun game with a unique style, and it just could have been a lot better if Rare at the time could work on it more. Jesus Christ, he scared the shit out of me.
There's like a pentagram burning in the kitchen.
Nah, it's probably just mom cooking.